Hi guys, Killer Shrew Fan here, and today I am very excited to be taking a look at our first new for 2019 Papo dinosaur. It is Stheno, our Gorgosaurus. Now this model quickly became a fan favorite in the dinosaur collecting community. A lot of people have been singing their praises for this model, and it seems to be the go-to out of the 2019 lineup. But how does it hold up in the eyes of Killer Shrew Fan? Well, we are going to find out right here and right now on Killer Shrew Fan's Killer Toy Reviews. Now, as always, we're going to go ahead and start off at the head of this model, but before we do that, I just want to say first impressions are pretty decent. Like I said when I unboxed it, it is an impressive figure. But the price point for this thing at its size feels a little exorbitant. I was expecting something much bigger, and I'd seen the reviews, I knew what we were getting, but really when I heard how much it was going to be, I expected it to be bigger. It's kind of like what we had with the Cryolophosaurus a couple years back, but now with the 2019 lineup. But that out of the way, the price point out of the way, we're going to take a closer look at the figure, starting off at the head. But before we do like the profile and everything, I wanted to show this thing from the front and say, look at this. It's got binocular vision. The pupils are a little wonky. I wish Papo would just kind of pick one way to do it. Like here on the left side of the face, you can see it's kind of looking off into the distance. And then on the right side, once we turn it around, you'll see it's looking more forward. And I think Papo does that in order to give you display options. But when you look at it from the front, that inherently just gives it a goofy look from the front, and I kind of wish they would just match them. I know that might be easier said than done, but still, just make them look closer. But as you can see, the sculptural details on this Papo model are quite good. You have scales of varying shapes and sizes, and like most Papo theropods, it does come with an articulated jaw, which opens incredibly wide. Look at that. That is an impressive bite on this thing. Unfortunately, they did not take the paint up into the little area, hollowed out area under the cheek there, so it just kind of cuts off, and it's just like, again, for the price point, what you're paying, it's like, was it really that hard to do that? I guess so, but there you can see the roof of the mouth has been addressed lovingly, and it is sculpted, the mouth and throat is sculpted incredibly deep in there, and you get a good look at the glossy pink tongue in the lower jaw there. But yes, quite a nice head on this thing. I love how they've handled the iconic Gorgosaurus crests over the eyes. Those look absolutely phenomenal. The scaling detail here is quite good, especially on the cheek down there, the lower jaw. And what else was I going to say? Crap. Oh yes, there is just the barest indication of shrink wrapping on this head. So I think overall this head is a slam dunk. I love the teeth, the individually sculpted teeth, how they're all different sizes. I wish that they didn't look so rounded off. Some of them have a sort of blunted nature, I assume for play safety, but usually Papo manages to keep them looking sharp and keeping them safe as well, and unfortunately they just did not do that here. If we move down the body, you can see all of the scaling details that have been lovingly put onto this Gorgosaurus. I love the rows of spikes. You've got 3 of them, one at the top and then 2 just down the side, just down below that run the length of the entire body. And then of course, you know, scales of varying shapes and sizes adorn this entire thing all the way down to the tip of the tail. Papo, I almost said Mattel, Papo did not leave a speck of space unattended to on this model. There you can see the powerful looking shoulder blades pressed up against the body as it turns its head off to the left, and then we come back up to that gorgeous head. Taking a look at the minuscule Tyrannosaurid arms, as you can see, they have been sculpted facing inwards, which is quite impressive, and I gotta say, I love the sort of held at the ready stance that they're in. It makes this thing look like it's flexing, like, come at me, bro, and then you can see the pectorals have been addressed quite lovingly as well. And yeah, I like the arms on this thing. Even for how small they are, the detailing is still there, which is absolutely incredible. The feet on this Gorgosaurus are also quite beautiful. This thing's gonna give me like a dinosaur foot fetish. I mean, my goodness, this is just gorgeous stuff. The plate scaling, it looks fantastic. The nails have been weathered and aged with muck and grime, and then you can see how powerful the calf looks from the front view as well. This entire area just looks so incredibly gracile, but also powerful, and that's like, to me, what makes a great dinosaur foot, because it's got to have that delicate bird-like nature, but also have the power behind it that would make these things such effective hunters. But yes, absolutely gorgeous feet on this Papo Gorgosaurus. Gorgosaurus, more like Gorgosaurus. I'm sorry, I will see myself out. But after the review, something I do want to mention that I'm not the biggest fan of here is we are missing some sculptural details that are usually present on other Papo models. It's kind of there, but it feels very honed in. The skin that is usually pushed up against the body in these sculptures or into the neck as the head turns off in a direction, they're absent here. I mean, it is there, but it's so subtle. It's almost, and with the paint scheme, they didn't do anything to like highlight it or bring it out, so it's like totally lost on me, and it makes this thing feel a little underfed in the sculptural department. Like, the detailing is all great, but the basic forms are just not quite there. Another thing that I want to talk about today is the pose on this Gorgosaurus. For me, it works from some angles, and for other angles, not so much. Like, if we were to pose it, say, in this angle, I think this looks absolutely gorgeous. I love this sort of hunkered down, roaring posture, and then you can see the tail in the background. This gives it the illusion that it is much longer than it actually is. I think it looks great from this angle. I think it looks great from this angle because, again, the perspective gives us the illusion that that tail is a bit longer than it really is. It's only when you pose this thing in straight profile that the tail instantly becomes way too short and stubby for the rest of that body. The head even feels a little bit on the large side. I can forgive that. What I can't forgive is the short, stubby tail. And even in this angle, this sort of squat, hunched nature does look a little awkward. It doesn't look like it's like in a crouched, ready to pounce pose anymore. It just looks like it's squatting and laying an egg or something. It just does not look as appealing to me as some other views. And you know, despite how small the tail is, this thing still wants to fall back on it. Like, with that massive head, the center of gravity still pushes this thing back onto the tail. It's kind of tricky to pose. It will stand. I can promise you it will stand. I don't know how long it's going to last, though. It just always wants to go back onto that tail. As far as the paint scheme goes, this is another thing that was kind of disappointing to me. I mean, it's good. It's well done. The colors that they chose to do, I do not care for. Any of you with a keen eye out there may have noticed this Papo Gorgosaurus is the spitting image of the Walking with Dinosaurs Gorgosaurus from the 2013 documentary film, pseudo-documentary film. And unfortunately, they made the sculpt look so much like it, but then didn't go with those bold, beautiful blue colors. Those Gorgosauruses were the best part of that movie because they were just so fierce and gorgeous at the same time. But Papo here decided to fall back on their usual dull brown earthy tones when painting this Gorgosaurus. And like, imagine Papo color schemes but with the blue instead of this brown. Like, imagine how good that would look, and instead we've just got this dull, boring brown paint scheme. I mean, like I said, it's not bad. I like the way the color all gradiates, and the black stripes are a nice touch, but it's ultimately just all for a thrilling shade of mud, and that's disappointing, especially since in recent years it feels like Papo have been venturing outside of their comfort zones with coloration. It feels like they're trying to do bigger and bolder colors, and this was just the perfect opportunity for that. If you're gonna make it look like the 2013 Gorgosaurus, go all the way with it. I don't think they would get in trouble for copyright because that image is everywhere. I don't even think whoever owns that cares, you know? So just go for it. I wish they had. And maybe down the line, hey, they'll do a repaint of it. But you've heard me say this is a small model for the price point. How small? Well, it's about 8 inches long from the tip of the snout to the tip of the tail. Let me see if I can get a more accurate measurement here. Probably closer to about 7.5 inches long from the tip of the tail to the tip of the snout. And then for the, oh well, double check, I feel bad. Yeah, 7.5 inches I want to say, which is about 18.5 centimeters. Sorry, we're kind of getting off camera there, but from the base all the way to the highest point, you're looking at right around 2.5 inches, just past that, which is about 6.5 centimeters off the ground, just under 2 3/4 inches off the ground. So not a big model by any stretch of the imagination. For size comparison, I'll go ahead and bring in Papo's smallest model to date, the Tupuwara, and as you can see, that thing can look this Gorgosaurus in the eye. I'm going to have to hold him because his little legs have warped over the years and now he doesn't want to stand. But yeah, he can look this Gorgosaurus in the eye. And that is the smallest model from Papo. Let me remind you. I can't emphasize that enough. So yes, if that gives you any indication on the size of this Gorgosaurus, I don't know what will. And next up for size comparison, here is the baby Rex next to the Gorgosaurus. And again, it's bigger than this Gorgosaurus. That little infant Rex comes up higher than our subject today. I mean, it's not as long, granted, but, you know, I mean, it's just, it's one of those things, man. And next up for size comparison, I went ahead and brought in the Papo Cryolophosaurus, because like I said, this was a similar situation wherein we have a smaller figure that has a higher price point for whatever reason. But this just kind of highlights, even this is like bigger than the Gorgosaurus, and it's also more visually impressive to me. I do find myself gravitating back to that Cryolophosaurus when you put both in front of me. And finally, oh no, not finally, next up for size comparison, we're going to do the Papo Brown Velociraptor, and as you can see, she is much taller than the Gorgosaurus is, and if that doesn't give you any indication for size, because I know this is Papo's most popular and used mold, so yeah, odds are you have some form of it or have seen something. And finally, for size comparison, I did it, I had to, I brought in the Papo Pachyrhinosaurus. And I gotta say, I do like how these two play off of each other, and again, they'd be even more fun to display next to each other if Papo went for bolder coloration. Like, just imagine how much cooler they would be if we had the dull Pachyrhinosaurus colors contrasting the vibrant predatory colors of the Gorgosaurus. I just think I would have appreciated that so much more. Well, everyone, there you have it. That is going to do it for our look at the new for 2019 Papo Gorgosaurus. So yeah, overall, really mixed bag on this thing. The stuff that I like, I really like. The stuff that I'm kinda meh on, it feels like there's a good handful. Like I said, small figure for what you're paying, dull coloration, and a sculpt that doesn't feel like it's in the same league as other Papo offerings. It's still good and one of the best dinosaur models at the lower price end without, you know, buying big statue diorama things. So for that, it's good. It is what it is. But for Papo, it definitely feels like it's been honed in a bit. And that's the best way I can describe this figure in general, is honed in. They played it safe with their colors. They played it safe, did the basic sculptures, and then they made it small, and then they charged a high price for it. So all of that being said, I think I'm going to give this dinosaur a solid 7 out of 10. Pretty good, but the things that Papo chose to do with it definitely crippled the overall product. It's hard for me to give it an official recommendation because of that high price point. So if you're like someone who really has to save and pick and choose which dinosaurs they buy with great care. I would say you're better off skipping this one and putting that money towards something else. But as always, if you can, and you're a Papo fan and you're a Gorgosaurus fan, go for it. Like, that's just a given, you know? So, it's good enough for that. As always, I want to know what you guys think of this model. Do you own it yet? Are you planning to pick it up? What was your favorite from the 2019 lineup by Papo? Leave all of your comments down below. I love reading through your guys' thoughts. And as always, if you enjoyed our review today, do not be afraid to let us know by hitting that like button. And don't forget to subscribe on the way out. Thanks again for tuning in, and that's going to do it for us today. Killer Shrew Fan, out.